Welcome to the UK Run Chat podcast. I'm Michelle, and today I'm talking to Alex Feechan. She's the founder of Findra, which is a clothing brand designed by women for women. And we're going to be chatting about women in running in the outdoors and how the kind of technical clothing industry has changed over the last decade and what Alex is doing to help. So, hi, Alex. Thank you so much for joining us on the UK Run Chat podcast. So, before we get into the bigger topics at hand, tell us a little bit about yourself. What first drew you to the outdoors, first of all?
Yeah. Well, first of all, great to be here. Michelle, thanks for inviting me, and it's good to chat to you. So I've been into the outdoors all my life. I grew up in a very urban area of Glasgow, but even as a little girl, um, you know, we were fortunate enough, we had a lovely garden. My dad was a big gardener, so I was outdoors gardening and being his little sidekick for a long time. And then, once I was able to ride a bike, that was it. You never saw me for dust. So always loved the outdoors, even when it didn't appear that accessible in terms of being able to, it's not like where I live now. I live in the Scottish borders, and I am literally a minute walk from the side of a hill and trails and things. So I've always loved the outdoors, but I went away to study at 17, came to the Scottish borders and studied industrial design and textiles at what was called the Scottish College of Textiles in Galashiels in the Scottish borders. The year that I graduated, it became affiliated with Heriot-Watt University. So it's a Heriot-Watt degree that I've got. So I specialised in knitted textiles, loved living in the countryside. And then when I finished my honours degree, I went to the Royal College of Art in London, back to the city, and I done my master's degree there. And when I finished my master's degree at the Royal College of Art, I really, because of the prestige of that qualification and that place, the Royal College, I really kind of could have gone anywhere in the world to start my career in the fashion industry. But the mountains were calling and Scotland was calling, and I made the decision to come back to the Scottish borders, actually. And I guess that's kind of because there's sort of three things that to this day are woven into the sort of fabric of my life. And those things are family, creativity, and the outdoors. So coming back to Scotland was because those three things mattered a great deal to me. And I probably made my career a little bit harder because of the fact that I chose to come back to Scotland. But anyhow, I started off working in the Scottish knitwear industry. So I've spent, prior to Findra, I spent about 20 plus years working in the Scottish textile industry, working for a number of different knitwear companies where I would design and product develop knitwear ranges, predominantly in the lovely cashmere fibre, and design for quite well-known luxury high-end brands. So I worked on product development for people like Calvin Klein, Chanel, Escada, and then sort of up and coming London fashion designers. So loved it, loved being in nature, loved the fact that I was surrounded by hills and greenery, and really enjoyed that. And then in between that little phase, actually, when I had my kids, I moved back to the city for a period. So I've got three sons. So moved back to the city, had the three boys, and desperately wanted to bring them up in the countryside. So we moved back here 20 years ago. And a few years after settling here, I got into mountain biking. So there was a women's group that met up on a Saturday morning, and I would go off out on a Saturday morning, and we just had an amazing time out on the trails. They were an amazing bunch of women, and we all had responsibilities, and we had like work commitments, family commitments. So we all had things to do. But just getting out in the trails at the weekend was just brilliant fun. And we would support each other, trying some technical trails and just have a great laugh, go for a coffee after. And that was us set up to be able to go back home and get on with life and our responsibilities. So that was where it started. And that was the starting point for getting an idea for Findra. And I can tell you a little bit more about that in a second.
Yeah, yeah, please do, because it's look. I love what you say about you had your kind of three priorities there, and they've all come together with Findra, haven't they? That's
We have,
lovely. Yeah,
which is, I feel incredibly fortunate that well, I always feel incredibly fortunate, even when I'm sitting here in my office at home and I look out the window and I see lots of greenery and I think, I get to do what I love in this place that I love, and to do something that's really fulfilling and feels, like it's purposeful. And for me, you know, I'm near my family. My sons are here. I am near nature, and I get to develop this career that I've really enjoyed. So yeah, so very lucky. A lot of gratitude for all of that, and feel very, very fortunate.
yeah. So just before we get into Findra and kind of
Yes.
the catalyst for that, what's it like working in kind of high fashion like that? Because you mentioned creativity. Can you be creative, or are you kind of just following kind of fashion trends, and who sets those?
So it's crazy because trends are. We work really far ahead when you're in the fashion and textile industry. And in fact, the textile part of it comes before the fashion part. So, as a knitwear designer, we would be 18 months to 2 years ahead. And you would go to trade shows and trade events. And they would talk about, so for example, right now in June, one of the things that I would do would be going out to a trade show called Pitti Filati in Florence, which is a yarn trade show, and they would be talking, let me get this right, about spring, would it be spring, summer? Autumn, winter 28, but also thinking about, yeah, so they would be talking about, no, let me get this right, autumn, winter 27, but also introducing spring, summer 28,
Yeah,
because
that's a long way ahead,
it's
isn't
a
it?
long way
Yeah,
ahead. And so there's a whole industry that's based on trends. And there was one trend agency that was based in Paris that I was fortunate enough to go and visit, and they produced these incredible, beautiful books that talk about it all comes from the influences of what's going on in the world currently and how that might lead to consumer spending, or how it might influence what people want. And so there's a lot behind the trends actually that's quite fascinating, and a lot of it is to do with what is going on in the world, and current affairs and global things that are happening that in incredible ways influence fashion, influence interiors, even right down to colours and what colour of car we might be driving in 18 months. They
yeah,
they all kind of feed off each other. Um, and if you look back in the history of like fashion, and you look at like skirt lengths, they all correlate with like the state of the finances.
yeah,
There's a kind of connection, like the swinging 60s were like, short skirts and it was like positive. And then when it gets a little bit, it just all kind of ties in, that you can connect it to like, what our economy's like, and what the atmosphere's like, and the mood of the country, the world, impacts on the fashion that's produced, which is why it's quite cyclical as well. So it is quite fascinating. And actually, that was always something that I was really, really interested in. But then I went, so I followed the career of designing and product developing, and I still work quite far ahead, even with Findra. So you've got to have your range ready, a good six. So you'd be going out to talk about your range now, to be able, if you're doing wholesale, to be able to sell it and get those orders in for delivery in 6 months' time. So you're always ahead. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So what was the catalyst for saying, right, I'm going to start my own outdoor brand then?
Yeah.
That's a huge step, isn't it? What made you think I'm
Yeah.
going to go for it now?
Funnily enough, from way back, I have always been really interested in, or had this feeling or this idea that I'd love to build my own brand. And it goes way back to when I was quite young, I would say, like maybe teenager years. And as I say, I grew up in the outskirts of Glasgow, very working class family, but my parents would buy the Sunday Times, and my dad would take the rest of the week to read it. but I would always get the magazines and the supplements. And I remember with one of the magazines, there was a supplement of a clothing brand called Warehouse. And you might not have ever heard of Warehouse, but it was like,
I remember
you
it
do
from my
remember?
youth. Yes, I used
Yeah,
to shop there a lot in my teens.
there
Yeah.
you go. So it's kind of aging as in like identifying our age there, but Warehouse was done. Yeah, sorry, I know, but Warehouse was by a guy called Jeff Banks, and I can still see myself lying in my bed, looking through the magazine, and not looking, going, "Oh, I'd like to buy that." I was looking at it going, "That model looks really cool. I like how that's been put together. I like that photography." So I think back to that, and there was this really clear in my head the things that I was interested in, and I hadn't even gone off and started to study fashion and textiles at that point. I just had this feeling that I loved putting these things together, and I loved the sort of styling and the look and the identity, the brand identity. And I would not have any clue at that point that that's what I was drawn to, because I studied art and design at school and was very into drawing and painting, but I would not understand brand at any level other than that there was something in me that was drawn to it. Um, so that's probably where it started in terms of that idea. But then, I wanted to learn. I studied for 6 years. I wanted to learn the industry. I wanted to get like being hands on, and I kind of wanted to learn my trade. And it was through these women that I mountain biked with that I went out and loved going out on my bike, and then decided that I would buy some kit for it. And I went to my local trail centre shop, and I walked into the trail centre shop, and when I stood in the retail area, I kind of looked around because of my background in fashion and textiles. Right away, I identified, right, 90% of what's on offer here is for men. And the 10% that's for women is a real afterthought. I can see that really clearly. I thought, okay, this is the shrink it and pink it approach. It's a man's product. It's like slightly reduced in size, and they've added a pink flower or a pink go faster stripe. And oh my goodness, we should be delighted with that. And I just thought, how disappointing is that? One, from a design point of view, it's just really poorly designed. And two, just from why are women not being taken seriously? I'm out there on that hill on a Saturday with an amazing bunch of women. And why are we not being taken seriously? Why are we not being considered? And so I felt like the design was letting us down, but also the industry was letting us down, and that we weren't being thought about. And I just really felt strongly that we deserve better. So better design, better representation, and better consideration. And I believed that I could do something. I did not know what I was letting myself in for, but in that moment, I thought, I'm sure I can do something a bit better here. And so that was the sort of light bulb moment. And at that point, I was working for a South Korean company who owned two textile mills in Scotland. One was knitwear, one was weave. And I would travel to South Korea several times a year. I was a design manager. I had a really great job. I loved my job. I travelled internationally. And so to just kind of walk, and also by that point in my own personal life, I was a single mum to my three sons. And so it was a sort of, you don't just kind of have that idea on the Saturday at lunchtime and then hand your notice in on the Monday. It's a lot to think about. What does that mean? What does that idea mean? And what is it that I think I'm going to create? And, how much do I know about this industry? And I'm passionate about what I do and passionate about doing something better for women. But I have all these other things that I have to seriously consider, keeping the roof over my family's head, having a steady income, and just where do you start when you have that idea,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did you start then? Tell us.
Yeah, where did I
So
start?
this was what, 12 years ago now, is that
12
right?
years ago, and
Yeah.
that's crazy to think about that. But I started off, I thought, right, okay, I've got an idea. Well, what my first question to myself was, well, what would I produce that's different from what's here? And so I would go out on the bike and I would think, right, okay, well, what are women already wearing? What else is on offer? And the first thing I noticed was, right, everyone's got the same baby blue rain, like, waterproof jacket, right? Um, and we were all wearing black shorts. And the other thing that I noticed, because I came from this background in knitted textiles and worked with these beautiful fibres, I'd worked a lot with merino wool because I'd designed quite a few golf ranges for various people. And so I knew that merino wool was an incredible fibre. And I knew that the benefits of it in the outdoors were fantastic. And living in Scotland and being active in Scotland in the outdoors, you've got to prepare yourself for 4 seasons in one day. You get all the weathers, and it's raining 1 minute, it's sunny the next. And what I noticed when we all met up, because it's a bit dreary in Scotland, we would have all of our layers on because we'd be cold. And then as you start to cycle up the hill and you warm up, you start to think, right, I'm overheating, I'm too warm. And we would have all these bulky layers because we were like wearing, maybe it would be a synthetic top, and then it would maybe be a cotton hoodie, and then a waterproof, and like, you're not having, they're not wicking the sweat away. So from a performance point of view, they were not brilliant, the products. But so I thought, right, okay, once you've started to cycle and your body warms up, you need to take these layers off, and then you put them in your rucksack, and that's a bit like bulky. And so I thought, right, I want to create a layering system that's really lightweight so that you can layer the products up and down depending on the weather, the activity, and just how you're feeling and what you need. So that was the first thought. And then the next thought was, I want to use natural materials. And believe it or not, 12 years ago, sustainability was not the big buzzword that it is today. It wasn't as much of a consideration. So I just knew that merino wool was a great fibre, and I felt like that would be so good to have in the outdoors. Um, and then I wanted the product to be, there was a couple of things, I wanted it to be sort of quite understated and also quite stylish, because after our bike ride, we all went to the cafe for coffee and cake. And that was a really great part of the day. That was like as much a part of the whole thing as getting on the bike and getting on the hill. And so I just wanted women to feel good about themselves in the product. I wanted them to feel that when they went into the cafe or whatever, that they didn't feel, like a sack of tatties, as my mum would say.
Great expression. Yeah.
Yeah, just feel good within yourself. Um, and I didn't want the product to be heavily branded because I was very aware that of the products that were on offer, a lot of mountain bike kit at that time was massively heavily branded. And, so the kit would be emblazoned with a brand name. And I remember being quite afraid of that, which sounds stupid. But what I mean by that is that I loved riding my bike and I loved getting out in the hill, but I didn't see myself as this crazy technical downhill rider.
Yeah.
And I felt that if I wore that kit with that big logo on it, people would have an expectation of me that I definitely didn't feel I was going to deliver on. And I didn't want those expectations. I wanted to be able to ride my bike and have a nice time and get outdoors and that be enough. So I was conscious of that, and I did not want to set any boundaries or barriers for any women. I didn't want to define women's abilities or give them anything that made them feel uncomfortable. I wanted the kit to be comfortable. I wanted them to put it on, know that it was going to perform, they could rely on it, but they just had to then, after they've got the kit on, enjoy being outdoors. That was the most important thing. So all of those sort of thoughts were going through my head. And then by coincidence, actually, I got an email from Scottish Enterprise Agency in Scotland, who basically said, do you know of anyone who's got an idea for a business related to mountain biking? And that went out to lots of people. And if you do, or if you have, come along to an innovation clinic meeting. So I went along, I was still working full time. I went along and I basically said, I've got this idea. I would like to create a brand for women's outdoor clothing, started in the niche of mountain biking. That's my idea. And there was 3 people there, one from Scottish Enterprise, Mountain Bike Scotland, and another one from the university. And they loved the idea. The lady from Scottish Enterprise is now a friend and buys the kit, loves the kit, does all our outdoor activities in Findra. So amazing support. What they helped with was, okay, what do you need? And I was like, well, I need to understand the market. So they were able to get me access to Mintel reports, to get insight into the market and the future of the industry and all that side of things. And they took us on what they called learning expeditions, which was to go out to Eurobike, to go out and to kind of see firsthand what was out there, what was in the industry, what was the industry sort of doing. And so that just enabled me to get a feel for the size of the market and also understand what I was getting into. And I also was able to apply for some grants to do my first prototypes. Um, and one of the things that I loved in the very early stages was the creative part. So thinking up, right, what are the products that I want to design? What is this brand that I want to build? And what's the brand all about? What's the ethos of the brand? You know, what and my career before my career, my fashion textile industry career really helped with that because I understood brand because I worked with brands. So I understood the importance of brands sticking to their brand's identity because I worked with different brands. So I was able to understand the differences. So understanding your brand identity, understanding your brand values, creating brand values, even though I didn't even have a product and I hadn't made one sale, understanding all of that and taking some time to really research that and start to get a feel for all of that. So I spent 18 months actually before we launched to market. It was about 18 months, might even have been 2 years, doing lots and lots of research. So once I got the kids to bed, you know, you do the usual thing, get in from work, do your, you know, take them wherever they're going, football, tennis, whatever, do all of that, food, homework, and then off to bed. And I would sit at night and just really enjoy doing this research. So I would sit from about 9:30 onwards and it just felt like fun. I felt like I really enjoyed it. It didn't feel like a chore. It was really exciting. I had no idea what I've always been like this, Michelle. It's like I know where I want to get to,
Yeah.
but I don't always know how I'm going to get there, and I have to trust the process. Um, so yeah, done a lot of research and then started to access tiny little pots of funding, like, you know, £1,000 grant fund that helped me buy fabric. I worked with the local university where I studied to do prototyping, and I started prototyping. And then we held these kind of workshops with women where we got women in and got them to look at what I was suggesting, look at my brand names, look at different things that I was suggesting I was going to do as a brand and get their feedback. And that was really, really, really important to then take that vision that I had and put it in front of real women who were doing stuff in the outdoors and get their feedback, because you can live in this little bubble that's your dream and your vision. But unless you get that out there and get the feedback, then you're not really kind of, you know, testing the market or anything. Um, and that was quite terrifying at the start because I thought, if my bubble gets burst, you know, then what? You know, so that was really quite tough. And these women, and they were encouraged to be completely honest, and they were. Um, and there's many of the women that came that day that are customers to this day, and we still talk about, remember that first day, and some of them, there was two twins sisters. Oh my God, they were brutal, absolutely brutal.
But that's probably helped you become, elevate what you're
Yeah,
offering, hasn't it,
yeah,
and become the best.
yeah.
What were people saying during that initial research phase of what was missing? What did they need?
Well, I think it was thinking about product from a women specific um, viewpoint. You know, I think like I had this fixation, funnily enough, on shorts that had a side seam opening because at that point it was very much about bike. So when you're on the bike, you put pressure on the sort of opening at the front, and I thought I'd solved everyone's problems, so I was going to have this side zip and all the rest of it, and then that got completely blown out of the water on that day. So it was like, that's not the problem, but here's the problem. The problem is we can't get shorts to fit us on the hip and the waist at the same time.
Yeah,
Ah, right. So we need adjusters in the waist because that is a key thing.
yeah,
Women can have all shapes. Women are all shapes and sizes, and some women have tiny waists and larger hips. So if they get something that that fits them on the hips, it's too big on the waist. And if they get a size that's right for their waist, they probably can't get it over. So it's like, right, okay, women are, there's such a variation in, like, I'm quite straight, I'm like, hips and waist are probably not that different to each other, so I'm quite straight up and down. Um, and then just like, women want comfort more than anything. They want to be comfortable, but that comfort doesn't need to come at the sacrifice of it feeling stylish or looking good. So that was always what I believed in my gut, was like, I want women to feel good and be comfortable, but not like have to, not like, we don't have to compromise on the style element. We can still have a stylish product. So there was things like that came out. I had a board that had lots of brand names on it, and it was like people had to put little asterisks next to the names. And then I had a board of lots of images of women in the outdoors, and it was, again, put stickers on the ones you like. And it was really like, women were drawn to the most, not surprisingly, the most authentic image and representation of women in the outdoors. And if you think back 12 years ago, and it's still not quite resolved, how women are represented through images of women in the outdoors is still, they're either over sexualized or like just not there. So
Yeah.
um, I have always been, and I'm a great believer, that if you don't see yourself, then you don't feel you belong. You know,
Yeah.
so that's that. And just hearing firsthand from these women, and I think the fact that it opened a conversation. I don't believe that there were any other brands particularly doing that well at that point, where we're having that conversation, going, okay, I've got two images. What one do you think represents women in the outdoors? Um, so I think they felt brilliant about being able to express that. And that's why they were able to be so brutally honest, because for the first time it was like, I'm getting a say in what this might look like. And being able to express that from this is what I want to see, it was quite refreshing. So it was really good. And it made me think a lot. It was really interesting, because you can have a preconceived idea, and even though you want it to be better, you can still have a preconceived idea. So it was really, really important that we'd done all of that groundwork before I launched. It was really, I always look back and I say to other women who are launching a business, I'm like, do the homework, get the good foundations in, so that you understand what you're building and you lay them on good foundations. Dig deep, and it might feel frightening, but dig into that uncomfortable feeling.
Yeah, and it's scary, isn't it? Because you don't want to fail, and
No,
but like you say, we can think we know what's right, but that
yes,
research is so important, isn't it? Yeah, I'm thinking back to what you said about women seeing themselves. The only thing I can think that was happening around that time, it was the This Girl Can campaign. Do you
yes,
remember that?
yes.
So it
It was
was,
really
people
good.
were just starting to realise that we did need representation,
Yep,
and we were beginning to just see women enjoying the outdoors and being themselves. And I think that's so important, isn't it?
yes, it
And I
really
guess clothing does have an impact on that. It is important. I mean, can poor kit be a barrier to participation?
I think for women, lots of things can be a barrier, and I think poor kit definitely can. Um, if you don't feel comfortable in a pair of shorts or a pair of trousers or leggings, if it's badly designed, if you're thinking about when you're out running, I've spoken to lots of women with regards to the leggings, and if you're out running and the trousers go, if your stomach comes over the top of the trousers, or like, you're just going to feel rubbish about yourself. It's going to
Yeah,
be an irritant, and you want kit that you put it on and you think, that feels good. Everything stays in position. You shouldn't be thinking about your kit when you're running, when you're cycling, when you're hill walking. You should be able to use that time to get all those amazing benefits of doing that activity, from a physical point of view, from a mental health point of view, from being outdoors. Um, you should be able to focus on all of that. So kit that's annoying or doesn't fit well or hasn't got the things in the right places is definitely a distraction. And I don't want to make a mass generalization statement, but I think that women are so busy, quite often in life, are so busy juggling so much, And for them to give themselves permission to have that time to themselves is quite rare, and they've probably got to go through quite a lot of mental hurdles to say, I'm having that time. So when they get that time, you just don't want anything that might be like, oh, I've got those leggings and oh, those leggings don't fit. Oh, it's fine, I'll go next week. You know, we're good at talking ourselves out of giving ourselves time. So
Yeah.
if we can take stuff away, if we can make sure that there are less barriers, then yeah, I would hope that we have more chance of doing what we love and doing something for us, you know?
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? I was
Yeah,
talking about that on my run this morning. Actually, it's so
really.
important. We often don't give ourselves time or the the kind of permission to do it, do we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're good at putting other things in the way. And it's funny, I had coffee with a girl last week who she does sort of coaching and sort of helping women to get over those kind of barriers. And we were chatting about, she said, when was the last time you were out on your bike? And I went, it's been a while actually. And I've been doing a lot more wild swimming, and we were chatting about all of that sort of thing. And she's like, what's your barriers to getting back out on your bike? And I was laughing. I was like, oh, there's nothing, blah, blah, blah. And then she said, she started to probe a little bit, and she said, where is your bike? And I said, it's in the garage. And she's like, right. And are there like lots of things in front of it? I says, no, there aren't. I said, but there's a key lock and it really irritates me. So much so that I'm like, I can't be bothered with that key lock. And she's like, there you go. So what are you going to do to overcome the key lock thing? And the key lock issue is because someone will have taken the key for the garage and forgot to put it back. And so I would get all ready to go on my bike, and then I'd get to the key lock and get it opened, and hey presto, no key. So,
yeah,
I then didn't even realise that that was becoming a barrier to me, which is ridiculous, isn't it?
yeah. It's the smallest thing, but that's often all it takes, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you resolved that now, Alex?
Well, we're going on holiday at the weekend and the bikes are going. So yes, in one
Yeah.
respect, and I'm sure that that will inspire me to get back on my bike. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, so yeah. So what a start to Findra. That's incredible. So that launch must have
Yeah,
felt both exhilarating and terrifying for you, I imagine.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it just mountain bike kit you were launching at that time?
It was just for like, specific to mountain bike. But I always knew right from the start that I wanted the brand to be broader
Yeah.
and to have a broader appeal and to develop clothing for women in the outdoors, because I walked and I'd done different things. But I started in that niche of mountain biking, and it was terrifying, but really exciting. But yeah, there was quite a lot of fear and apprehension, and again that feeling of what happens if all those things. If no one likes it, what happens if this? What happens if that? And but really mixed in with a lot of excitement that I'd got to that place where we were just about to launch. So
Yeah. So how long did it take to feel like you were established and you could just go with Findra then and kind of quit the day job, as it were?
it was another 18 months that I
Yeah.
juggled the brand, and progressing the brand, selling online, going to events. I juggled that with my job. I just knew that I had to kind of juggle both until I got to a place where I felt that, because I needed this salary, if you like, I needed to be able to have an income. And so yeah, 18 months before I then was able to transition to being able to focus on the business full time, which was hard. I look back at that period and I think, oh my goodness, because I also joined a business accelerator uh, hub as well, which was absolutely brilliant. But I sometimes look back and think that was the craziest period ever. I don't know how I done it. I think I just like didn't overthink it. I just done
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
So it was an exciting time. I was very motivated and very probably running on adrenaline, but it didn't feel like a chore. None of it felt like a chore. It felt like really enjoyable, exciting. And I loved the whole getting into the whole side of the business side of it. I found that really interesting and fascinating. So that helped a lot as well, that I enjoyed that side of it.
Yeah. So are you still kind of Findra, or have you got a big team behind you now, Alex, to
Not got a
help?
huge team. We've got quite a small team, but we there's handfuls that like are employed, and then we work with external people as well. But I always say we're small but mighty because we do a huge amount for such a small team. We achieve a lot and get through a huge workload. So that's it's really nice, and that has been an interesting journey. Finding the right people has not been easy. Um, and it's taken quite a while. But touch wood, we've got great team who just get what we're trying to build and do, and work really hard, and we have good fun as well. As well as kind of managing the stress and pressures. We enjoy what we do, so it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah,
And it's clear you've got a lot of passion about it.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's lovely to hear. So you touched on your values earlier. So what are the Findra values then? And because we were talking a bit about sustainability as well, weren't we?
Yeah, so sustainability is really important, and not just sustainability from the point of view of like sustainable fabrics, which is important. So we look for recycled or natural materials, but also sort of sustainability in terms of the triple bottom line. So that triple bottom line in business is about profitability, um, so sustainable materials. So people, planet, and profit are the three sort of key things in a sustainable business. So investing in the people, looking after your team, but also investing in the wider community. And so for me, it was like, those women that I mountain biked with, that the spirit of those women, and the feeling that I wanted to shine a light on women in the outdoors, to show more women, other women in the outdoors, and very much at a level that's not a kind of top of the mountain level. It's very much, like, you can do it. You can take the first step to running. You can take the first step to trying mountain biking or swimming, or, I wanted to show real women, because then it's relatable. But also to celebrate women that are achieving great things, because they are inspirational. So people really important, and giving back to that community and supporting that community. Um, and encouraging younger women to come through, and then profitability, building a business that is stable. Um, so there's a lot in the business world where, and again, this is a whole other conversation about being a woman leading a business in the outdoor industry, and being a female entrepreneur. There's this whole thing of the hockey stick curve, which is where you grow exponentially and like really quickly. And like, that terrified me. It's just not doable. Well, it is doable for some people, but it's not a sustainable way to grow. Um, and the data tells you that women-led businesses like to grow in a stable way, an incremental growth. So that is important. And then, the product being as sustainable as possible. We can't be fully sustainable, but we try really hard. We, try and work with as many UK suppliers as we can. The overseas suppliers that we work with, they're all accredited. For example, with Woolmark, there's have accreditations in terms of how they treat their staff and their environment and things like that. So we build really good. So building relationships, our key suppliers we've worked with for the last 10 years, and they have supported Findra in a way because they've banked on us in the early days and grown with us. So that's been brilliant. And so those relationships are really important. So people are really important to Findra. And I think around those three things, it's people, it's the planet, and it's stability and stable, sustainable growth. And we're about being kind, treating people with respect. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We take creating a product seriously, we take building a sustainable business seriously, but we don't take ourselves too seriously. So we want to celebrate women in the outdoors. So an element of joy, at whatever level, is really, really important. Um, and I think just being open and as transparent as we can be transparent. Those are the things that matter. the most to us, and to enjoy what we're doing, what we're building,
Yeah.
you know.
And you've got a new campaign at the moment, haven't you,
Yeah.
called On Our Terms? Tell us a little bit about that.
So the On Our Terms campaign was launched in April, and that came about. So about well, it's 18 months ago now. We've done a very sort of big brand review, a review of the product range, and we talked about what we wanted to build into the range. So product development is very expensive. Introducing new products is really expensive, and we survived COVID as a business, and off the back of COVID, things were really tough. So that was quite hard going. And it was probably about 2024 that I felt like I kind of lifted my head above the parapet and went, okay, I can look to the future again. And so we started to review everything that we were offering, started to do some, we knew the customer profiles that we had. There was one customer profile that I felt we weren't really delivering for, and that was a slightly more technical product and more performance product. Our clothing is very versatile, so it performs, but it's also you can wear it for every day. And I wanted to kind of go a little bit technical. Um, and so on that brand review, we felt that was the important next steps, and that we wanted to get back to that our roots in a sense that was right. What motivated and inspired me right at the start, and it was those women on the trail. And so we wanted to get back to that confident kind of grittiness that we had right at the start. Um, and through conversation, it was, we don't women have been told so many times that if you've gone into an outdoor shop or maybe a bike shop or wherever, and you're kind of quite often met with this kind of, oh, we don't have a big women's section because women don't really like doing stuff in the outdoors. There's all these excuses that if you spoke to a group of women, they would all have an example of how they've been made to feel. And so it just felt like that is so wrong. It's not true, but it's so wrong that we are made to feel that way. And even sort of 10, 12 years on, there's still elements of that women are feeling. Um, and so being passionate about that whole sort of statement of if you don't see yourself, you don't feel you belong. So making women feel like they belong. So not defining how far you run, not defining how far you cycle or how high you climb. It's all about what do you want to do and how does it make you feel? And does walking the dog twice a day make you feel good? Brilliant. You've been outdoors. That's great. So it was like, okay, well, that's like let women do it on their terms. So collectively, it's like on our terms. We're going to do this on our terms. And for Findra, it's like we are going to give you the kit to do that. That kit is going to help you do what you do in the outdoors on your terms. So we dug into the different aspects of the kit of the range that we're missing, and we developed kit that we felt nice pieces to add to what we've got. Very much in the Findra handwriting, but pieces that weren't already there and were slightly more technical. But again, recycled fabric, elements of natural fibres, and just like really enjoyed. So I've worked with a new product developer. Donna's came on board about 18 months ago. She's got fantastic experience, loves the outdoors, lives and breathes the outdoors. And so it's things like the fit of the garment was really important. Where the pockets were there pockets? What do women want? So as a team, we would start to think about these products and develop them. And when we'd get prototypes, we would wear them. And then we would come back and we would be like, this pocket needs to move because I can't do this or that. Or this doesn't feel the right fit. It's irritating me in this way. Or I think this needs to have a hood that's this shape. Or, so we would spend time wearing these things, wearing these products, doing what we love, whatever that is, and then tweaking them so that we get a garment where when someone went out and wore it and they come back and they're like, that's brilliant, that works so well. And then it's like, right, that's ready to be added, so we've just worked really, really hard over the last 18 months to introduce this range, this on our terms range, which is trousers, fantastic trousers, adjustable waist, which is really fantastic, great fit, great shape. And then we've got our lovely wool blend fleece, which is fantastic. Lightweight t-shirts, really lightweight, breathable. It's our lightest weight merino blend. Um, just little things like the vest has wider shoulders, so if you've got a rucksack, you're not going to chafe. It's not going to chafe on the shoulders. So just lots of things, and we've just really had fun doing it. Really enjoyed it, and it's about women and thinking about all the things that women want and need as much as we possibly can. And that new range goes up to triple XL. The other by Christmas, by the end of the year, we'll have right up to triple XL, and then we will consider going another size above again. So we just want to break down as many barriers as possible to
Yeah,
women
I
getting out.
think that's brilliant. Yeah. What have you got in your range for runners specifically at the moment then?
So we've got the aspen and alder leggings. They are a beautiful recycled fabric. It's a buttery soft fabric. Um, Really quite lightweight though, but breathable. And the aspen is the printed version, and the alder is plain. They've got that lovely deep waistband. They've got an adjustable waistband, deep side pockets for phones and keys and
Oh,
things.
we love pockets. Yeah, we
Yeah,
love
they're so
pockets.
practical, aren't they? They're just, yeah, you really need them as well. Um, and then we've got the elfin t-shirt and the elfin vest, and that's a really lightweight merino. Um, and they're just such easy pieces to wear. So the t-shirt is slightly shaped at the waist, but it's just very practical. It's got merrow seams, which means that they're like really nicely. The stitching on the seams is really smooth, so that when it's next to the skin, it's nice and comfortable, but also really durable. Um, and then we've got the Etta fleece, which is brilliant for next layer on top of the merino t-shirts for cooler days. Lovely fit, great hood, great fit.
So could
Pockets,
you run in that? Is that
you
breathable
could
enough
run
to
in
run
that.
in? Yeah.
I would say that the t-shirt, and then we've got a soft shell jacket,
Mm,
which is perfect for running. So the
yeah.
leggings, the elfin t-shirt, elfin vest, and Ossian jacket, that is a great running outfit
Yeah.
because they both wick away the sweat. So the merino is perfect for wicking away the sweat. Um, we were working really hard to get an even lighter weight fabric, um, and we've got that going on in the background, especially because Donna's a runner, and she was like almost fixated on this really lightweight, wickable fabric for runners. Um, but the elfin t-shirt's brilliant, and the vest. So those three pieces, I would say, or there are four: the two leggings, the Ossian soft shell, and the elfin products. Brilliant for runners.
Yeah. And I guess you'll now be working ahead to you'll be well underway for autumn, won't you? Work
Yeah,
already working for next spring, summer.
we are already working. So just before we spoke, Wednesday's our product development day. So I had two product development meetings. So we're getting all the prototypes for spring summer 27 next week. And we'll be fitting them. So we fit on we call fit model is the technical term. So it's a real person that you fit the product to, and you consistently fit to that person. So we'll be doing fittings next week of the early stage prototypes of spring summer 27.
That's exciting. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So if our listeners had ideas for what they need from running clothing, would you be open to listening to them?
100%. I
Yeah.
absolutely love to hear what people want. I love honest, direct feedback. And if there's something that's missing, I would love to know, because that's what it's about. It's a two-way process. It's not about the rest of the industry, which dictates what you or believes that they know what you want without asking, what would you like? So
Yeah.
Findra's all about that interaction. Um, we want as many women in the outdoors enjoying themselves, and so if we can help, that's what we're here to do. So hearing about any product that we've not got that women would like for running, would love to hear.
Yeah.
Very
There
welcome.
you go. So get in touch. What's the best way for people to contact you?
So you can contact us on any of our social media platforms. So there's our Facebook platform or Instagram. You can send a DM through Instagram. You can also contact us through the website or through our emails, which is hello@findra.co.uk. And we will happily communicate about any of that and chat. And if we get enough, we would love to do a little forum, a little online chat group, where we could have a call and just chat through that stuff. I love that kind of thing. That's,
Yeah.
What really helps inform the range of products and ensures that we invest our resources into the right things for women.
Yeah, and that's got to be really valuable to you
Yeah,
to actually speak to people face to
definitely.
face who actually use your clothing. Yeah. Yeah. Oh well, thank you so much, Alex. It's been such an interesting chat, and
Oh,
thanks so
thank you.
much for joining us on the podcast.
I've
We'll
loved
pop
it.
all the links in the show notes for people to get
Yeah,
in touch with you.
yeah,
Okay, so
that
thank
would be
you.
brilliant. Thank you so much. That would be great. Thank you. Lovely to
Yeah.
speak to you.
Yeah, you too. So if this episode has inspired you to try something new, or you've got some ideas for Alex on what Findra might include in their next range, we'd love to hear from you. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the UK Run Chat podcast.